Hi everyone, in this video I'll be showing the making process of a traditional leaded light door panel. So this is for my client's new front door and there's around 2 weeks worth of work to squeeze into this video, so let's get going. So the door has already been made, and once it was put together the joiner has been able to make a template for the opening, which is this here on the bench, this wooden template. So this is made to the exact size that the window needs to be made to be able to be fitted correctly into the rebate of the door. And the little drawing there on the left hand side, that's the drawing that I've made for the customer to show how the design is going to hopefully look when we've finished it all. So yeah, that's the plan. And once I've printed out the template, so this design here, this paper template, once that's all printed out and cut ready to the right size, then I start straight on with the glass cutting here. So here I'm using my Silberschnitt glass cutter here, and I'm scoring the surface of the glass, which is basically scratching at the surface of the glass, a nice even scratch line or score line, and then applying pressure. Hopefully the glass piece will break out as I want it to, and we'll have a successful cut. You can use sort of running pliers, or you can use the tapping technique to break this sort of shape out of a piece of glass, but I do prefer to use my fingers. Get hands on, there we go, success. I did choose this reproduction Flemish glass here on purpose because it is a very predictable glass, and it did sort of increase my chances of having a successful cut. So the design that I'm working to, so this design that I've drawn out, is actually using an existing window in my client's property as inspiration. So all the glasses, I'm trying to tie it in with that sort of existing window. Like this glass here, this reproduction red cathedral, this bright red, this is quite a good match for the red that's used in the original window. And here is a photograph of said window in my client's hallway. So this is what we're using as inspiration. But I actually think there's been a bit of a mistake here. This original window here, this could be 100 years old, but I actually think that the bottom section, the lower half of this window, was fitted upside down. If you look at the pattern, the way the lead lines run through into the second section, it doesn't sit right. I actually think it should look like this here. So I've turned around that bottom section, and yeah, I think it should look like this. So after a discussion with my client, we've actually decided to change the design to suit how we think it should look, like this. So once it's fitted, there will be a little bit of a story to be told. My client's not going to go through the sort of expense or hassle of turning around the bottom window. It's been like that since it was originally fitted. So we're going to leave it as it is. But yeah, the door panel, we're doing that slightly different, and we're gonna sort of make amends for it. But yeah, there'll be a story to be told. Again, here I'm using a little bit more bright glass, so this is a nice bright green reproduction cathedral. So yeah, just a nice glass to cut, and it's a good match for that original green that was used in the hallway window. So that's all the glass pieces cut there, all laid out ready on the bench, and I'm using this gorgeous hand spun red roundel here, just like the original window featured. So the next step in the process is to lead the window together with the traditional lead came. And in this project I'm using 4 different widths of lead came. So I've got the 1/2 inch, which is this stuff here. This is the wide chunky lead. This runs around the outer edge. And then the center of the design is made up of, we're using 1/4 inch, we're using 5/16, and I'll be using 3/8 lead. The narrowest lead that I'm using on this project, the 1/4 inch, that will be used in the main motif in the center section and around the sort of the teardrops on the left and the right, and around the roundel. And then a lot of the background is 5/16. So even this section here that I'm bending now, this is 5/16. So this is quite a chunky lead. It's quite unusual to use it in this application here. You tend to use sort of a narrower lead for these types of bends, but I'm tying it in with the original. So the original used a chunkier lead, so we're using this 5/16 in this section instead. And then the fattest lead I'm using on this project, the 3/8, that's going to run horizontally across the center of the window. That main line that runs across there, that's the chunky bit. And then there'll actually be an external reinforcing bar that's fitted to that that long length that runs across, so that when this window is fitted, there'll be a steel bar that runs across the center of it, and there'll be little ties that tie the window to that bar to give it extra strength, as this is quite a wide window and it's going to be fitted in a door that moves and it opens and closes. We want to add a little bit more strength to the window. Yeah, so it's going to be, want it to sort of last the test of time, so we add a little bit more strength to it. With this project, I have tried to tie in the colours, sort of the textures and the colours that are featured in with the original window, except one glass, and that's because the original hallway window, the main background glass, the sort of the clear textured that doesn't run around the outer edge, is actually just a clear glass, so you can see through it. Now, because this is a door panel that I'm making here, we wanted to add a little bit more privacy to it, so we've changed out that clear glass for a clear textured glass instead. So in that glass there, that glass section, I'm using English muffle, clear English muffle glass. It's a glass that I use all the time, looks really good, and it's got a good privacy level, so that's what we've changed in the glass that I'm using. Now, in my content videos, I would often sort of edit them and clip out these little bits of fiddly work that I'm showing here. So these always happen, this type of things where you sort of, you're struggling to get pieces to sort of slide together and whatnot. And I'd often clip these out of a video, as I don't really think they're very interesting, but I thought I'd just leave this one in just to show you how fiddly and tricky they can be, just to get it all to sit together and click in place. Yeah, it doesn't always just fall into place like it's making itself. They're often quite fiddly, and you have to use little levers and mess around trying to get things to come together. So there we go, that's the window pretty much leaded together now, and the next step will be to solder all those joints. So everywhere where one piece of lead meets another piece of lead, that requires a soldered joint. It's a joining that we, almost like welding, but it's not welding, it's soldering. And for that I use a traditional propane gas soldering iron. I get asked all the time why I use propane gas rather than electric. I do have electric irons, I just prefer the gas ones. They're a little bit more comfortable, the sort of the way that the iron's weighted and the way that the tip is at a different angle at the end of the iron. It's just more comfortable when you're soldering for prolonged periods, of which I do have lots of very big windows, and you can be soldering for like an hour at a time, so you want to be as comfortable as possible. So I do prefer this here. This is my propane gas iron. And then for the flux, I use just a standard flux paste, and you have to apply the flux before you do the soldering. This helps the solder to flow onto the lead came, and you get a nice clean joint. So yeah, here we go. So now at this stage I've soldered both sides of the window, and this is the first opportunity you get to really see the light shining through, to see how the colours all look together. So that's the window there, and now it needs to go through the cementing process. So as you can hear there, all the glass pieces, they're rattling around, they're all loose inside the lead came. So the window if it was left, it would leak water and it wouldn't be very strong. So that's why we apply this stuff here. This is the lead light cement, and basically what I'm doing here is I'm pushing it, I'm forcing the cement into the gap between the glass pieces and the lead came, and I want to get a really good coverage. And once this stuff here, this goopy black paste, once it dries out, once it hardens, this is where the window gets its strength. So at this stage I've cemented both sides of the window, and now it will rest on the bench for a few days before I can start to clean off the excess cement. It needs a few days just because you want it to stiffen up. Now you don't want to leave it for too long because you don't want it to sort of set like concrete. It's all about timing now. So yeah, I'll put it to one side and we'll come back to it later in the week. Now a few days have passed and it's time to get back on this project again. So I'm using these little sticks here. This is what we call the picking, and I'm using these little metal sticks. These are actually old screwdrivers that I've sort of ground down to a little point, a fine point, and I'm carefully running around the edge of each piece of glass. So each piece on both sides of the window, I run around the excess, and then we're just getting the bulk of the cement off. And then finally, using lots of different brushes, different hand brushes with different stiffnesses of bristle, I go over the window removing the excess cement before I apply this stuff, which is black grate polish or a black stove polish. And this gives the lead came a really nice darkened sort of graphite, sort of good metal grey finish. It's not quite black, it is very much a dark grey colour. But yeah, basically giving it a sort of an antique look before the window is finished and collected by the customer. And there you go, the window is now complete and ready for collection by my customer. It's not quite set absolutely solid in the cementing process, but it's certainly strong enough to be moved around or even fitted. But you just have to be a little bit more careful because it's still going to become stiffer and stiffer over the next few weeks. But yeah, there you go, job's a good one. Cheers for watching everyone, see you next time.